So let's look at parabolas. It says a parabola is a set of points in a plane equidistant from a fixed point and a fixed line. The fixed point is called the focus, and the fixed line is called the directrix of the parabola. So when we do these, we're gonna have to put all these different things together. So let's look at this. So it says the axis of symmetry of a parabola passes through the focus and the what? Is perpendicular to the directrix. It says the vertex is the midpoint of the line segment joining the focus and the directrix of axis. So this would be your focus, and then we have our directrix. In this case, this is y is equal to some number. All right, some number b. Then we have our what? Our vertex, which is hk, which is the what? Midpoint of what? Between the focus and the directrix. So let's look at this. So it says the parabola with a focus of 0p and a directrix of y is equal to negative p has an equation of x squared is equal to 4py. And it says what? The parabola is vertical, has a vertical axis of symmetry, x is equal to 0. And opens up if p is greater than 0 or down if p is less than 0. So this is your regular parabola that goes up and down. All right, so if we look, they say if p is what? If p is greater than 0, it opens up, and p is less than 0, it opens downward. As you can see in the two illustrations. So now we're actually about to go through how to use these. So this is opening up and down. Let's open from left to right. So the parabola with a focus, P0, and a directrix of x is equal to negative p has an equation of y squared is equal to 4px. The parabola has a horizontal axis of y equals 0. It said it opens up right if p is greater than 0. Opens up left if p is less than 0, as you see illustrated here. All right, so let's actually use these. Now, what you will first have to do is figure out what you have and what you're going to use. Is it opening up or down, or is it opening up left or right? So let's look at this one. So we got x squared is equal to 8 times y. It says find the focus, the directrix, and the vertex, and the axis of symmetry of each parabola. All right, so we have x squared is equal to 4, which is equal to 8 times y. So remember that our initial one was what? X squared is equal to 4py. So to find our what? P, we have to do what? We got 4p is equal to 8. So p should just be equal to what? 2. So if we were trying to find our focus, it'd be what? So our focus would just be what? 0, 2, right? Because it's 0p if you go back to the previous slide. All right, so it's 0p, which would be 0, 2. Our directrix, all right, would be y is equal to what? Negative p, which is -2. And in this case, our vertex, since we don't have a h and k, or we do, they just what? 0, 0. It'd be 0, 0. Now, and our axis of symmetry would just be the y-axis. So, axis of symmetry. It'd be y-axis. And let me make this a little bit bigger right here for you, so you can see it real good. So we did what? We plot our focus. So our focus point would be 0, 2. Then we got our directrix. Then we what? We do our vertex. Now, these two numbers right here, we actually just fine. As you see, if they plug in what? We plug in 2 for y, right? We plug in 2 for y, you will get what? You will get the -4 and the +4 for x. So just keep that in mind. Or if you plug in what? -4 for x, we're going to get the +2 and the -2. Well, the two 2's. You'll get 2. Because you will get -4 squared, which is 16, divided by 8, which is going to give me 2, right? So that's how they got those numbers. All right, let's look at this one. A sideways parabola, because it's y squared. So we got y squared is equal to -28x. So this one should open up from the left. Now, we still got to do what? For p is equal to -28. Right? So we will get what? 4 is equal to -7. So our focus would be what? P0, which would be -7, 0. Because it's negative. All right? Now, if we look at our directrix, it should be what? Since this is a sideways parabola, it should be x is equal to +7. Because it's what? It's on the other side. So now our vertex is still what? 0, 0. So vertex is 0, 0. And you know that our axis of symmetry is what? X-axis. So these right here are more straightforward than when we get to all the ones that's going to shift up and down, left and right. And we'll get to that soon. Now, if you have any questions about this, just make sure you ask about it. All right, make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. So, as you see, we have our what? We have our focus point, then we have our directrix, then we have what? 2 points. Now, if you notice, they're using the what? The point in the directrix. So they use what? -7. So if you use -7, you should get 2 different values for -7. So keep that in mind. Just like the last one, they use what? They use 2. right? They use 2 and they got 2 different points. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. If you do that, then you don't have to worry about all them extra points. You can just go ahead and plot what you need. So let's look at this question right here. So it says, write the equation for each parabola. So if I'm given that the focus is 2/3, 2/3 0, and the vertex is the origin, how would I write this? So what do we know? If the focus is P0, then this should be a what? Sideways parabola. Now, if it was 0P, that would make it a what? Be a regular up or down parabola. Since it's P0, it should be what? A sideways parabola. So now we already know what the vertex is 0, 0. So now we can go ahead and plug in what our P is. So we have y squared is equal to 4 times 2/3 times x. Because why? Because remember, we already know what our P is, so we can just plug in P. So y squared is equal to what? 8/3 times x. So that's all you had to do. Now it tells you, so you found the equation. So let's look at the graph of this equation, which we knew it was a sideways parabola because they gave us the focus and they gave us the origin, or the vertex is the origin. Let's look at this one. It says what? Write the equation for each parabola. It says the vertical axis of symmetry. So it has a vertical axis of symmetry, which means it's up and down, okay? It says the vertex is at the origin, so it's at 0, 0. And then it said it goes through a point of -2, 12. So this is interesting. So if we know we got a vertical axis, we know it's going what? Up and down. So we got x squared is equal to 4 times p y. But now, it tells us a point. So we got what? We can go ahead and plug it in. -2 squared is equal to 4 times p times what? 12. Because they gave us a point to actually use. So now we got what? -2 squared is 4. Then we got 4 times 12, which will give us 48 times p. Then we'll get p is equal to what? 4 over 48, which is p is equal to 1 over what? 12. All right? So we found what p is. Now we can go back and say we got x squared is equal to what? 4 times 1 over 12 times y. All right? And let me rewrite that real quick so it looks just like it needs to. So 1 over 12. All right, so we got x squared is equal to what? 1/3 times y. So keep that in mind. So if you look at it, you can either have it that way, but I'm going to show you another way you can write it as well. It can also be written as what? Y is equal to 3x squared. So it's or. Now, write it the way that the computer tells you to write it so you'll get it right on the computer. Because sometimes the computer is real funny about how you do certain things. Now, let's look at equations forms for translated parabolas. It says a parabola with vertex HK has an equation of the following form. So we have x minus h squared is equal to 4p times y minus k. Then we have y minus k squared is equal to 4p times x minus h. The first one is the vertical axis of symmetry, and the second one is the what? Horizontal axis of symmetry. And it says the focus point, the focus is distance, absolute value of P from the vertex. So the absolute value of P from the vertex. Let's look at this. Now, let's look at what we have. All right, it says write an equation for the parabola with vertex 1, 3 and focus -1, 3 and graph it and give the domain and range. All right, so the first thing we're looking at, we got what? They gave us the vertex. They gave us the focus point, right? So, now when we're looking at this, you guys saying this stuff has been moved and shifted and everything. So we have to find what we need. All right. So we already have the focus, we already have the vertex. So my vertex is 1, 3. Now, they gave us a focus of what? So they gave us a focus of -1, 3, right? Now, but we got to figure out what our P is. The P is the absolute value. So it's the distance between the vertex and the what? The focus, right? So when we find the distance between the two, so we got what? We will have P is equal to -1 minus 1. Well, let me erase that part right there. We got -1. It's -1 minus 1. All right. So that'll give us what? -2. Now, if we look at what we have, all right, so we got a P of -2. We have a P of -2, so let's actually go ahead and plug some stuff in. All right, so we got y minus k squared is equal to 4 times p times x minus h. So let's plug in what we have. We got y minus what? 3 squared is equal to 4 times -2 times x minus 1. Right? Then this would just be y minus 3 squared is equal to -8 times x minus 1. All right? So since it's negative, you know it needs to open up from the left. All right? Now, the whole point of minus and 1 is because we shifted down 1 from the origin. So keep that in mind. We shifted. We shifted up. So we want to make sure that we understand what we did. So since we went up, we have to do what with we have to do what with it? We have to shift the P up as well. So when we're looking at this right here, let's look. So when we look at the domain, we got the domain is going from what? -infinity to 1. And we have the range going from -infinity to positive infinity. So keep in mind what we have. So let's look at this. So remember, since this one right here, it shifted, it moved. So let's look at it. If we look at the actual thing, so pay attention to these. Since the vertex is now, that means it went what? From its original state, right? That means it went left, where it went right, 1 unit. And then it went up, what? 3 units. So it went right 1 unit, then went up 3 units. So keep that in mind from our original thing. So if we think about our focus point, now you got to keep in mind that the focus is the distance of the absolute value of P from the vertex. Okay? So you got to keep that in mind as well. So we got to do what? We got to subtract the 2 x's. All right? So see, if you see I had -1 minus 1 to figure out what is the distance. So if you look at the actual graph itself, you see it's 2 units. So you move 1, 2 units. That's why P is -2, because it opens up from the left. All right? So if you have any questions about this, make sure you send me a message through Microsoft Teams, or you make sure you send me a message through email. So try some of these problems and then let me know how it turns out.